Hello everybody, welcome to the infant feeding session of Ask the Midwives. My name's Hannah Torrance and I'm one of the infant feeding team midwives, and I'm here with Opsy Daisy in case we need to do some positioning and attachment. So I'm basically here today to answer any of your questions, so if you have anything at all and no question is too silly or too odd, we hear it all. So feel free to write in the comments. I don't think anyone's joined us, or have we? We've got 3 viewers. Let me know if you're here with me, if you're listening. That's always really nice and really helpful. First of all, I just thought I'd tell you a few things that are going on with us in maternity. We're really excited to announce that we have free antenatal sessions running again. So especially if it's your first baby, it's something you might want to consider. We're working in partnership with the National Childbirth Trust, who are helping to deliver antenatal education for families. So it's a really great opportunity to get some free sessions. You can book them by texting BUMP, all capitals, BUMP, to 60777. Yeah, 777. That's it. 60777. I will put it in the comments now, so in case anybody didn't catch that. So I'll just type that in quickly. There we go, you have my typing face. Let's see, hopefully that will come through to you. Brilliant. So that's really exciting. There's an antenatal session talking about what to expect, talking about how you can prepare for labour, what you might like in your bag. Oh, sorry, there's a bit of a bang. I just have to close the door. Sorry, I'll be right back with you. Sorry about that. There'll be the first initial session, which is about antenatal care and things you can expect when you come in labour and that sort of thing. So that's really helpful, especially if you haven't experienced labour before. And they're really experienced facilitators running those sessions. And the next session is an infant feeding session, so it's all about feeding your baby, how to get breastfeeding off to a good start, skin to skin, and all of that brilliant information that we hope every family would get in that period before they have their baby, so they're just feeling a bit more confident and a bit more prepared. So, oh yay, hello Charlotte, nice to see you again. Yes, everybody's well. It's just me this week in half term, so you've just got me today, so it might not be as long a session today, especially if we don't have very many questions. Your due date's this month for your little boy. That's lovely. And you're going to go to the Spires. Brilliant. So as Charlotte's mentioned, we have a midwifery-led unit that's based at the John Radcliffe, and it's called the Spires. For obvious reasons, and there are no doctors or consultants actually based in the unit, although they are within the hospital, so it's all totally midwifery led, and we have some really beautiful rooms there, and you can see some photos and I think a virtual tour. I'm not sure if they're doing face-to-face tours, I will check that. So you can have a look. The rooms have pools and they're really nice. So that's good if you're having a low risk pregnancy. It's something you might consider if you're within Oxford City. We also have midwifery led units in the north and the south, Wallingford, Wantage, and up north at Chipping Norton and the Horton. So there's lots to choose from, and of course there's always home birth as well if that's something you're interested in. So do talk to your midwife about place of birth if you're interested in finding out about the different options. Charlotte's saying she'd love to have a water birth. Well, we do lots of water births and they're very successful. What midwives find is that babies who are born in water are often very, very calm. So if you think about it, they're in a watery environment in your womb, and so it's a very gentle transition to be born into warm water. And then we usually encourage the mum to bring the baby up onto their chest out of the water. So they tend to be very, very calm. It's a really nice way of birthing if that appeals to you. And certainly get more information on that if you join the antenatal sessions that we mentioned. Who else have we got? Hello, Emma. Hi. Good afternoon. Yes, please ask away. I'd love to hear any questions you have. Otherwise, it'll just be me waffling on. That's fine. You hit send too soon. I'm glad other people have these problems too. I'm always doing things like that. That's fine. I'll wait for your question to come through. That's not a problem. I might quickly mention as well as the antenatal sessions, we're launching some QR codes, so those black and white square QR codes. There'll be one for infant feeding now in your notes, so in your antenatal notes they're going out to all the community midwives, and they will link straight to our infant feeding webpage, so that will be a really quick way of people accessing feeding information as well, so that would be good. And they'll be on your postnatal notes as well when you go home, so that you can quickly access that information again. So, have you asked your question, Emma? You've got a 15-month-old little one, and he's suddenly become really fussy. Suddenly become really fussy with food. Things she really enjoyed, like toast and crumpets. Yeah, she seems now to avoid. And is that normal? And any tips to overcome that? It's a very funny age, 15 months, isn't it? Their brains are absolutely exploding. And I think sometimes, to start off with, I think that is quite normal. I've heard that is a common experience. So often they make a really good start to weaning, or they make a really good start to their solid food, and it can then start to tail off a bit, and it almost feels like they're going backwards. But they're not. They're just realising that milk is a very safe place, and they sometimes want to go back to something that is very familiar when their world is changing so much. They're becoming so aware at that age, and like I said, their brain is really exploding with all the things they're learning. They're often pulling themselves up, cruising, crawling, walking, learning to speak. There's so much going on for them at that age. Sometimes they're going into childcare for the first time. If they're not staying at home, they sometimes are starting nursery or have recently started nursery. So there is an awful lot going on. So although frustrating, and I know it's worrying when you feel like your child has been eating well and then they're not eating as well, I would just say that it is age and stage, and it is a phase. It definitely will pass, Emma. Obviously, as long as you think they're well and you don't have any other sort of concerns, if they're developing well and they seem happy and settled, and they're pooing and peeing, all of those things are really important. So I think long as all of those things are going on, I would try to reassure yourself. I mean, it's always worrying when our kids don't eat as much as we think they ought to be. You haven't said, but I'm wondering whether your 15-month-old is still breastfeeding, and whether they're breastfeeding more than they were, Emma. Sometimes that happens too. Wondering whether you've gone back to work or other things that might be going on. Yeah, she's trying to regain. She's definitely busy. Yes, that sounds like a very typical profile for a child that is starting to go, if you like, a bit off the food. I would reassure you that that's really okay, but definitely talk to your health visitor. They're really, experienced in children of that age. And if it sounds like maybe your baby stopped breastfeeding, but if she's still feeding, then La Leche League, and there's a really active group in Oxfordshire. I'll put the link in the comments. But they're really the experts on toddler feeding. They're really great, and it's mother-to-mother support. I'm just going to go back to Fran, because I hope that's okay, Emma. But let me know if I can help in any other way with that. But definitely talk to your health visitor if you're worried. Fran, you gave birth to your second baby on Sunday. Oh wow, unintentionally at home. Gosh, I wonder what that experience was like for you. Wow. So I'm just going to try and it's moved up because people are commenting, which is wonderful. But I'm just going to see if I can read what you've sorry, there's a bit of shouting in the background. I'm not sure what that's all about, and now I'm trying to find the comments. I do apologise, I'm having a bit of a technical difficulty here. Trying to see your comments. I'm finding it hard to keep up with you. Hang on, everybody. I'm going a bit slow, aren't I? I just want to make sure I don't miss Fran, and I've lost her comment here now. Oh, there we are. Gosh. But you've received good support and excellent care from the JR. I'm so happy to hear that. Gosh, congratulations. Amazing. So that will be quite a story to tell your little one when they're older, how they arrived in the world. I'm glad it was a good experience. Let's see, and Jessica. Hi, Jessica. Sorry it's taking a while to get through all your great comments. Your baby's 4 weeks old. You've had some latching issues, but you're working on it and using shields at the moment, nipple shields. In the evenings, she can want to feed every 20 minutes, and you're not getting enough milk. She's putting on weight, and there's lots of dry and wet nappies. Okay. She's sleeping 20 minutes, and then this cycle from about 7 to 12 is quite tiring for me. I'm not sure. Yes, Jessica, so hard those evenings with a 4-week-old baby. So especially we see from 4 to 6 weeks that this is a pattern for breastfed babies. They become very, very, very unsettled in the evenings, and they tend to cluster feed. So although I am completely hearing how hard that is for you, and I've been there, it's not easy when you're exhausted and you're not, even sleeping well at night, and it's the end of a long day. It's really challenging, but I would reassure you that you are not doing anything wrong. It sounds like that is very common. We hear that very commonly between 4 and 6 weeks. Any breastfeed that lasts from 5 to 40 minutes is we would consider to be normal. So that in itself is not abnormal. Every 20 minutes can be normal, like I say, in that cluster feeding. I'm wondering why you say you're not getting enough milk, because if she's putting on weight and she's pooing and peeing, then actually she is getting enough milk from whatever you're feeding her. I'm wondering if you're expressing or whether you're breastfeeding directly. That will probably help me answer your question. But certainly what you're describing, that 4 to 6 week fussiness in the evening and cluster feeding, is very, very common. And your baby is not broken, and you're not doing anything wrong. And I know it's hard, it's so hard, but it will pass, and your baby will settle into more of a gentle rhythm, more predictable gentle rhythm. What I will do is I'm going to make a little note for myself to put in the comments some resources about cluster feeding, because there are some really good resources about babies being unsettled in the evening around that age. Obviously, if you think it's anything more, reach out to your health visitor or your GP, but it does sound quite common. I hope that's okay, Jessica. I'm just going to move down a little bit. Emma's saying that they stopped breastfeeding between 12 and 13 months. That's amazing. What a wonderful gift to give your daughter. It's really, you've done so well. Thanks, Fran. Brilliant. I'm going to try and find that information for you and pop it into about the cluster feeding in the comments there. Babies do often sleep for quite short sleep cycles. So adult sleep cycles tend to be about 90 minutes, and we go through that cycle and then come to a natural lighter sleep, and then we go back down again. So babies have much shorter sleep cycles, so that can be quite hard for adults, because sometimes what's happening is we're just getting in the nighttime, we're just getting off to sleep, and they're already waking up again because they've completed one of their sleep cycles. So that can be quite challenging. If you're interested in what's normal sleep pattern, or what we think is very common in children and babies, right through from birth, right through to sort of toddler age, 3 and 4 years old, there's a really good resource called the Baby Sleep Base. It's the work of Professor Helen Ball in Durham, and she's been studying infant and maternal sleep for her whole career, and it's a brilliant resource, and it's written really so simply. It's really easy to understand, but sometimes when you feel like you're really in the trenches with sleep deprivation, it's really good to actually hear that it is a thing, and your child isn't broken, and that there is a large percentage of children that are still experiencing that kind of disrupted sleep at night. With newborns and very young babies, as you know, they have they have very, very small stomachs. So for them to actually get their calories over a 24-hour period, they do need to feed really, really frequently, and that includes at night. They can't go for that very long stretch overnight like we can, because they still need to be taking calories and fluid in overnight, so they're just not built like that. And when you think about it, when they're in your tummy, in the womb, they're having the placenta, the afterbirth feeds them continuously 24 hours a day, and suddenly they're born into our world where they experience hunger for the first time. So often parents say to me, do you think my baby's hungry? I don't know. And actually your baby, if it's a newborn baby, probably doesn't know either, because it's a completely new experience for your baby being hungry. So they're still working out how to give you feeding cues and what feeding cues work, and mum will respond to me and feed me, or somebody will pick me up. And so that brings us on to something which is important to know, which is feeding cues. So babies will crying is the last feeding cue that a baby will demonstrate. So when a baby cries, you've often missed a lot of subtle feeding cues. So if you think about it from an evolutionary point of view, it's not a good idea to cry if you're going to alert potential predators. So we have developed, the human race, over centuries to communicate very subtly with our caregivers to let them know that we need something. So often with a newborn baby, it is as simple as they may turn their face towards their mother's voice. They may become a bit restless in the cot or next to you or in the carrier. They may start to just put their fingers in their mouth and suck on their fingers and make slurpy noises. They may stick their tongue out like that. So all of those things are actually early feeding cues, and especially when you're learning to breastfeed and you're both trying to get the hang of it, catching those early feeding cues will give you much more time to trial and error and work out breastfeeding. Because if you wait till your baby's really hungry and they've been trying to give you these feeding cues for a long time and they've resorted to crying at you to get you to feed them, then they're really not in an emotional place to be able to start breastfeeding. And it's very difficult then to get a good attachment. So I would say really try and pick up those early feeding cues rather than wait till your baby's quite agitated, because what you really need to do at that point, at that late feeding cue, is help them to settle. Here's Upsy Daisy. Hello. You really need to sort of help them to regulate at that point. So you're really sort of the rocking and the patting and the soft talking and just giving them a cuddle and trying to bring them back down again. Remember, babies' brains are not developed yet. They've got years of maturation to go through. So when they're newborns, they really, really do need an adult to help them regulate their emotions. You know, in the old days, people used to say things, or you might get your nanny or your mum or auntie or granddad or whoever it is might be saying, if they have outdated information, you know, you mustn't pick them up all the time, they'll get spoiled, you mustn't carry them so much, you mustn't jump every time they, you know, and all of that. And we know that is not true. That's an absolute myth. We now know that babies' brains develop best when they are responded to in a loving way, quickly, and it's much, much easier to calm a baby when they're not right at the height of dysregulation. So it's just like us, when you're really angry, frustrated, really, really upset, it takes quite some time to come back down again, doesn't it, and to feel normal and to feel calm again. And it's just like that with babies, but they even don't have the brain capacity to do it themselves. So don't let them get to the point, if you can, where they're very difficult to calm. Try and catch them early, try and reassure them, and that way you'll have a much calmer baby that's ready to feed. There goes my soapbox. Sorry, that was a bit of a monologue. Don't know how we got into that. Feeding cues. I'm just going to have a little look. Is there a new comment? Who's talking to me? Oh, did I miss your comment, Charlotte? I do apologise. Let me just go up. I'm running ahead of myself here. Yes, so Charlotte, you would say, yes, I'm just going to go through because I can't remember. Alex and Naomi are absolutely fine. It's just because it's half term. And So I'm doing it on my own because it suited me with location today to do it on my own. Naomi's absolutely fine holding the fort at the JR, and Alex is also fine as far as I'm aware, and she's taking a bit of time out, as you know. I'm really happy to hear you've booked the Spires, so we had a bit of a chat about that, haven't we, and the fact that you're hoping for a water birth, which is also brilliant, and hope we'll love to hear your feedback after, if you get your water birth. Tell us how it went. We'd all love to hear that. Oh, this is the one I've missed, isn't it, Charlotte? Your nearly 3-year-old daughter's very fussy, but she is growing well. I mean, I think a little bit like Emma, these toddlers drive us nuts sometimes. They have some very peculiar eating habits, don't they? What is their favourite food on Monday, they won't countenance on a Wednesday, and that is a bit how it is in the early years with feeding. So I personally wouldn't get too worried, especially a 3-year-old that's growing well. They've got a lot of reserves at 3. If they're a well-grown 3-year-old, they're very able usually to communicate their needs. So if they need a snack, or they need a drink, they're able to let us know. So unlike a newborn baby, so I would think that just go with it. If they're getting a bit fussy, that can be sometimes a bit of a developmental thing. Some anthropologists actually say that once our babies start to be mobile, because we're carrying mammals, and this is probably relevant to Emma's query as well, and Charlotte, but because we're carrying mammals, once our babies actually start to be able to walk or crawl or mobilise for themselves, especially a 3-year-old and a 15-month-old is able to sort of climb a bit. And when we were hunter-gatherer communities, once our babies stopped being carried in arms or on our back and started to go themselves, they needed to be really very careful about what they ate in the forest, in the jungle, picking berries for themselves, eating plants. So you may find that around this age, when they start to move, anthropologists have noticed in all cultures, not just cultures that still live, not just indigenous cultures that are still living very close to nature, but also in westernised cultures, because remember, your child does not know where it's been born and what year it's been born. We're hardwired with instinct. And so those children sometimes can become a bit fussy around that age. And it might be that this is an inbuilt protective mechanism to make them a bit more careful about eating unknown foods or foods that they perceive to be not safe foods. So this may be part of a safety mechanism that we've developed over centuries. So I think long as your baby's well and your toddler's well and they're peeing and pooing, you say that, Charlotte, your 3-year-old's developing, that sounds great. I wouldn't worry. Give them what they'll eat and try not to look at what they eat in a day. I would say try and look at what they eat over a week, because you know what 3-year-olds are like. One day it's a battle to get 2 cream crackers and a drink of water into them, and the next day they eat like you've starved them. So and they do tend to be like that. And so you look at what your little one's eating over a week rather than over the day. And I wouldn't get too het up about what they're eating. I mean, long as they're not eating chocolate for every single snack and meal, I wouldn't worry too much if they want to eat their safe favourite foods. It's better than not eating at all, and it may just help them build their confidence up again if they're given their safe food. So I personally would, if you're happy that your child's developing, I wouldn't worry too much. I hope that's answered that. Oh, you've written she loves custard. I love custard. Custard, biscuit, porridge sometimes. Well, those, I mean, they sound, they're actually, when you pull those foods apart, they're not bad foods, are they? Custard's often got egg and milk. We need some sugar in our diet. Natural sugar is obviously better, but some added sugar is okay. They're using a lot of calories. I'm sure your 3-year-old's very active. Biscuits, you can always try and find biscuits that your child likes that've got oats in, like porridge. I mean, porridge is brilliant, oats and milk. And if you don't eat dairy, you can use nut milks, and they're very nutritious. So it sounds like those foods are all good, and you could eat those every day and survive. So I just would not worry too much and give her safe foods. When she's good, she gets chocolate. Yeah. So Yeah, I mean, chocolate has health benefits, doesn't it? It's a bean. So yeah, you need to do what's right for you and what's right for your child, and as long as they're overall eating well over the week, I wouldn't get too concerned. Yeah. If you're interested in getting some bit more information rather than me waffling, there is lots of good resources accessible through your health visitor, but also you can access them at a really great charity called First Steps Nutrition, which I'm also going to put in the comments here. First Steps Nutrition. I'm making my little comments list for afterwards. First Steps Nutrition do a great toddler guide. It's lovely. They've even got photographs of, like sample meals that you could do, and they're not fancy. They're literally all like finger foods that you can just eat that are in your home already. So really helpful. So I'll put those on afterwards as well. Oh, hello Izzy, a new comment. Thanks for joining us. You've got a 6-month-old and he's getting his 5th tooth. You're still persevering with breastfeeding. It sounds like it's tough at the moment. He responds well to saying no when he tries to bite, but interested in how we might be able to help. Yeah, I wouldn't be introducing nipple shields at 6 months old. I mean, nipple shields are a bit of a misnomer as well. They've got a funny name. It's one of those things that doesn't really do what it says on the tin. Nipple shields are like little plastic pieces that you put over your nipple, and they have like a little cup shape that your nipple goes into. Actually, if you've got damaged nipples already and you use a nipple shield, it can be extremely painful and can damage your nipple more, because when the baby sucks on the nipple shield, your nipple will get drawn into that plastic. So they're not always as shieldy as they're marketed. I definitely wouldn't introduce it with a 6-month-old. If you are willing, I would contact or look at some of the La Leche League resources, because they are brilliant. One of the things that we do when babies of that age start to bite is, there are a few things. The first thing we do, because it's painful, we often shout out to them. We go, oh, we go, no! And that's quite shocking for a baby. And it depends what variety of baby personality you have. Some 6-month-old will burst into tears. Some 6-month-old will think it's absolutely hilarious and try it again. So that kind of big reaction, although it's difficult to suppress it, is quite exciting for babies of that age. So the other thing we do, as well as shout out when a baby bites, is we tend to pull away, and that's completely the wrong thing to do, although very, very understandable, because actually if you pull your baby in closer to you, it's much, much harder for them to bite. And when they're breastfeeding, their tongue is actually down over their bottom teeth, so it's very, very hard for them to bite down if they're attached really deeply and properly. So often what we find is that babies bite at the very beginning of the feed, when they're starting that flutter sucking to try and get the milk to let down. It hasn't come down yet and they're getting a bit frustrated. Sometimes they bite then, but most commonly they bite at the end of the feed at that age. So it's when they're a bit, the milk's slowed down and the feed's starting to stop. And oftentimes mums can predict that baby's about to bite, and that's the time to slip your finger in and pop baby off. Often mums start to notice a pattern of when that baby starts to feed. Sometimes it's a play thing, sometimes it's because they're teething and their gums are just really hot and really itchy and they want something to bite down on to sort of ease that discomfort. So sometimes mums have a cooled teether or something cold or next to them, and when they feel that they're getting to the end of the feed or the baby's becoming a bit wrestly or fussy and the milk's slowed down, that would be the time to preempt it and take baby off and give them something to bite. One thing we find with 6-month-old babies is that they start to lose they start to get a bit sloppy with their latch sometimes towards the end of the first year or so. And so it's just remembering, because we just sort of whack them on at that age. You don't even really, it's a bit self-service, isn't it, really, at that stage? It becomes quite, after the hard work of getting breastfeeding going in the early days, it's actually, you're really reaping the benefits at sort of 6, 7, 8 months, because they're feeding like a dream and you're not hardly aware of it. The problem with that is sometimes they don't get the best attachment, and toddlers and older babies sometimes don't tilt the head back enough, and they don't open their mouth wide enough. So sometimes if you've got a baby that's sort of biting and things like that, just when they come towards the breast, say, open wide, and get them to open wide. They'll copy you, and then push their bottom jaw in first, remember, and get so the head's tilting right back, like that, and that way what happens is their bottom jaw pushes into the breast first, and it makes their head tilt back. And the benefit is sometimes those top front teeth can be very sharp, and they often leave a little indent on the top of the breast. So if you've got 2 little indents on the top of your breast, it's not a bite, but it's starting to get a bit, you're starting to not enjoy that because you're getting a bit of wear there. It's because your baby's not attached deeply enough to stop tipping its head back. So try asking them to open their mouth wide and push them in towards your breast. So I hope some of that helps. I will add some comments. I'll add some resources, Izzy, in after the session. I'll put them in the comments. So some sessions about biting, so some resources, about biting, but it is a very normal developmental part of breastfeeding, and it does pass off, and especially if you get pay attention again to the latch and try and get them deeply on. That can really help with the biting, and see if you notice a pattern. Is it when your little one's a bit bored and they're not sure what to do with themselves, so they're having a feed but they're not really feeding? Is it because they're coming to the end of the feed and the milk's slowed down? Is it because they've become distracted? Is it because they've got sore teeth? So it's usually trying to sort of understand where the biting's coming from. Is it a game? Are they just experimenting because you've given them a reaction, because it hurts, and then they're trying to work out what that's all about? They're still, at the stage where they're not really understanding that other people feel pain. Empathy is not 100% developed in small children, so it takes time for them to understand that other people can get hurt and other people can feel pain. So, your baby probably isn't aware that what they're doing is hurting you. We got some new comments. I'm trying to keep up. Charlotte's got some ideas about weaning. That's brilliant, to make sure that you're getting it off to a good start, and you've tried different ways of helping them eat. That's brilliant. Great, Izzy. I'm not sure if that is really helpful, because actually it's just really painful. It's really, really painful. And a lot of women stop breastfeeding because they don't get the support at that point. But breastfeeding is still so important if it is still working for you both, and really try and get the support from La Leche or, from your health visitor around biting, because there's a lot of resources out there. Children have been doing it for a long time. And so we do have tips and tricks to share with you about how to get through that unpleasant development with them. The World Health Organization recommends exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, nothing else, no other food is necessary. And then from around the middle of the first year until 2, they still recommend breastfeeding alongside complementary foods. And then as long as the pair still wish, so there's still some really good immune benefits, right up to 2 years old and beyond. So if you're not ready to stop, don't let it be the end. Do get the support, and I'll try and put some resources down in the comments after we finish. Hang on, I just know someone's trying to come in the door. Sorry about that. A little bit of interruption there due to distraction at the end of the feed, so you'll watch them a bit closely at that point. I mean, yeah, certainly that That does sound very classic kind of baby. They get really distracted at that age, don't they? And they start really taking your nipple protractility to the absolute limit. They want to stay latched, but they want to look around the room. They want to see what the cat's doing, who's come into the room, what that noise is. So but they want to stay attached the whole time. So that can be quite uncomfortable as well, because they're pulling your nipple all around with them with their head. There's also a really, really good book. It's an old book, but it's called Mothering Your Nursing Toddler, and it's by a lady called Nancy Bumgarner, which is a bit of an unfortunate surname, but she's an American, and it's still available, I think, probably on some of the second-hand book websites. It's a La Leche book. That's quite fun in the sense that it gives you a few tips to get through that toddler foibles, and still quite relevant. So you could have a look out for that one. But La Leche, as I say, I know I'm always going on about La Leche, but then Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support as well, which is we're really lucky to have a really active independent charity in Oxfordshire. So I don't know if any of you know about Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, if you've used Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support in the early days. They also are really experienced with feeding older babies, so they also would be really, really great people to link in with if you're experiencing some of those difficulties. Lauren, hi, another new comment. Your daughter's 19 months old. You've been suffering with feeding aversion from a very young age. Oh, she's had feeding aversion. Do you mean to solid foods? Sorry, Lauren, can you clarify? Let's have a look. She's now been referred for an autism diagnosis. She won't drink anything, but you are getting her prescribed formula into her. She eats the bare minimum. I'm sure you must be very worried. It's so hard to have a child with additional needs. It's hard enough having a child that's sort of following the normal trajectory, but when you've got a child that seems to have some specific needs and challenges, it is an awful worry. It's such a worry all the time. We worry about our children, don't we? You're dreading the warmer months when you feel like she should be taking more fluids in, and you're already just about getting the minimum into her. You can really hear that is going to be a concern for you. I'm wondering whether you have a paediatric dietitian that you've been referred to. Are you working with a dietitian? Because that definitely sounds like, some long-standing problems or long-standing challenges with your little one. They would be really a useful people to talk to, and I'm wondering if you can access them either through your GP or through the specialist service. If you've been seeing a specialist service for the feeding aversion, Lauren. So it sounds like you have a prescribed formula. That's great, and your little one is still taking that. So I think in these situations you do have to sort of take the wins, and you're really she's managing that, and it's working for you both that she is taking that. So at least she's getting that in, which is brilliant. So I'm hoping that she'll keep doing that over the warmer months. If that's what she's taking, that's good. Let me know if you're let me know if you're under a dietitian, if you're getting the support you need. And see if we can signpost you to any further help. Excuse me. Is she peeing well, I'm wondering, Lauren? That's probably the midwife in me. She's quite a bit older, isn't she? But that's always my first jump to when you say she's not having enough fluids, because so what you're looking for is nice dilute urine, so not a dark yellow or orange colour, but a nice pale straw colour, and that's how all our urine should look. So on days when you've not had enough drinks, then your urine will look a bit more concentrated. So that's really what we're looking for with our kids as well, is that they have a nice pale straw coloured urine that's not too dark, and that shows us that they're taking enough fluids in. Oh, Lauren, you've come back to me. She went on breastfeeding at 12 weeks, and you've bottle fed her. Brilliant. She was always very hard to feed. Weaning didn't go. She just doesn't eat much or drink. Yeah, I'm hearing you. She has a paediatrician. Oh, but no one's worried about her fluid intake. I see what you're saying. So she's got enough fluid to have wet nappies, so it's not like an acute worry. So the health professional's not really worried about her, but you're saying you're still really not happy with the amount of fluid that she's taking in. I really would urge you to ask for a dietitian review, so a paediatric dietitian, if you've got long-standing feeding challenges like that with solid foods or with fluids. I think that's a really, really appropriate and reasonable thing to ask for. You can either ask the paediatrician that you're seeing, if you've got an appointment that's coming up soon, and ask for a referral to a paediatric dietitian, or you could go to your GP and say that these concerns have been going on for a very long time and you feel that you need some extra support, and they would refer you to a paediatric dietitian. She's got cow's milk protein allergy and soya allergy, so she's on a prescribed formula, and that's her only fluids at the moment. I'm glad she's still taking that, and that's really good. Yeah, as Lauren's highlighted, formula is made from cow's milk. Average formula is made from cow's milk, and it has a lot of the common allergens in it. So the most common allergens are cow's milk, soya, fish, and all of those things are in most formulas, which is why we try to encourage as many families as possible to breastfeed. So we just don't know which children are going to have those allergies, so it's really tricky. But that must have been really, really hard if your baby went on nursing stroke at 12 weeks, and it's so hard to get the right support and get you and your baby through that. Again, sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's really, really, really hard. So well done you for giving her that 3 months and persevering. It does not sound like you have had an easy feeding journey with your little one. I'm wondering if she's your only child or whether you have other little ones as well to cope with. That's not easy at all. I think feeding and food is such an integral part of wanting to care for somebody. So it's a really, really emotive topic when it comes to our children, and we're worried about whether they're eating and drinking enough, whether they're eating the right things, all the guilt around different kinds of foods. So all of those things are really emotive, and they really get us, because we want our children to thrive and be well and eat enough, and that's definitely the way that we show love and nurture to our children, is to always make sure that they're well fed and well watered, and so I definitely feel for you, Lauren. That's really hard. Please make sure you're getting the support you need. It's also, as you know, quite well documented that autistic people can have either sensory issues or safety issues with food. So, some foods feel safer than other foods. Some textures are experienced as unpleasant. So it may be that some of that's linked in with an autism diagnosis, but it would be definitely worth getting a specialist dietitian involved, because it doesn't sound like your little one's feeding issues are going to resolve overnight. You're a fourth child. I have 4 as well. That's it. So you've never experienced anything, and that is hard, because when a little one like that is taking so much of your worry and your energy, and you've got 3 other children as well to worry about, and make sure you've got family meals and family meal times, that's really, really hard. So yeah, please make sure you're getting the support that you need. It's not easy. I'm wondering whether that's us for today. We're getting close to the end of our session now. We've been together for 3/4 of an hour, so I'm wondering if there's any other burning questions out there that anybody wants to ping at me before I say goodbye. Well, I'll try to I'll wrap up for today, so I'll put as much of the information that I've promised. I've made a little list on my piece of paper here. I'll put as many resources as I can remember into the comments. So if you were one of the people who asked a question and I said I was going to put a bit more information or links in the comments, then just have a look after the session closes. They'll still be there. If you're pregnant and you're interested in free antenatal sessions, I've also put the information there. So texting BUMP, B-U-M-P, capital B, capital U, capital N, capital P, to 60777, and it's in the comments. If you're pregnant, then you can access free antenatal and infant feeding sessions by text it. You can book them by texting that number. If you have friends who are pregnant or relatives in Oxfordshire who are interested, you can also ask them to book through that text message. So we're really hoping to provide that all for you. So Lauren's saying that she's got her health visitor visiting. I'm really regular visiting. That is so good. I'm glad. Do you like your health visitor? I'm hoping that you've got a good relationship and you're forever at the GP. Exhausting. That's really hard. Yeah, but you have to ask for what you need, Lauren, which I'm sure you've worked out already on the fourth child and a child with these issues. But you do have to ask for what you need. Health professionals are chasing their tails, and you need to be your advocate and your child's advocate. So, if you think you could be getting some better support somewhere, find out what it might be and ask for it. Yeah, I hope you get the support you need. So I'm going to say bye for now, everybody. Thank you so much for everybody who commented and asked questions. Thank you for joining me. It's always a bit awkward when you're just on your own talking to a screen. So thank you. We will be back on... Let me just flip my paper here. I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. So we're with you fortnightly on a Wednesday at midday, the lunchtime slot. So bring your sandwiches. And we're next going to see you on the 1st of March. So the pinch and the punch for the 1st of the month. We'll see you on 1st of March, Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Look forward to it. Bye.